Now, what is a data warehouse itself? They are nothing more than databases, which means we store information in tables that are related to each other. For example, we have these two tables that are related to each other. They are connected through the PK column in the table above, which is the departments table, and the departments column in the table below, which is the employees table. Because they are related to each other, this database is called a relational database. If we look at a more complete database, we will see something like this image, where we have a large number of tables and all of them are related to each other. The characteristics of a relational database are as follows. First, it contains tables. The way information is organized is in tables. All information will be stored in tables that have rows and columns. Each table represents an entity, and an entity is the representation of a real object or concept for which we want to store information. For example, the concept of sales or the object of people such as employees, or another concept like clients. Another characteristics are rows and columns. Tables have rows and columns, where each row is a unique record for the entity or table and contains information for each of the fields defined by the columns. The columns represent characteristics of the entity or table. For example, if we are talking about the entity of people, such as employees, their characteristics will be name, surname, date of birth, gender, etc. For this example, let's take the entity of employees represented by the table below, with the characteristics of name, surname, date of birth, gender, and department number. Another characteristic is the primary key. One of the most important characteristics of tables is that they have a unique identifier for each row they contain. This identifier can be one or several columns. What this means is that if we take the column or columns that function as the key, we will not find any repeated values. This key can be anything, as long as it is not repeated. The most common is to have numbers that increase sequentially for each new record we add to our table, so the primary key will never be repeated. Another characteristic are foreign keys. Just like the primary key, which is used to identify the records of a table, foreign keys are primary keys but from other entities. Since an entity is represented as a table, the foreign key is a primary key from another table. In this case, tables that are not the employees table. For example, these two tables are related because in the employees table, we have a foreign key in the last column called departments. This column will store the primary key from our departments table, and in this way, we will know the characteristics of the departments to which each employee belongs to. For example, the first row in the employees column is David. We know he works in department 1. If we use this key to identify the department in the departments table, we will see that it is the sales department. Finally, SQL. This is the language used to query the information stored in my table. So, if we want to view, insert, or perform any action on the data, we must use this language to communicate with the database. It is a very fairly easy and straightforward language to understand. Out there, there are a lot of relational databases, but the most common ones you will see are MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle Database, and SQL Server. There are relational databases that are built in such a way that they are more efficient when querying information. This is necessary when the amount of data we have is very large, and traditional databases might start to slow down due to the volume of data. An example of these are Amazon Redshift and Azure SQL.